Okay. All right, let's talk about the broader Todd Blanche stuff, the broader Justice Department. Again, that list, Jake, is so long. Democrats obviously want a lot of answers. Where do the Republicans stand on this?
I don't think any Democrat's going to vote for him. I mean, he has met with Democrats. I think we've reported that. I think he gets confirmed, Katie. I do. I think that, that's just my gut. I think John Cornyn and Thom Tillis, while they are on the fence, vote for him. Do I know that for sure? No, that's the general, that's the conventional wisdom up here. Does Susan Collins vote for him on the floor? Does Lisa Murkowski? I don't know the answer to that. But I do think at the end of the day, he can get 50 or 51 votes. And I don't think there'll be a tiebreaker needed. I don't think anything like that. I think nominees basically say what they need to say to get confirmed. He said what he said about the slush fund. The Senate did not put it into law, did not cancel that thing from being implemented. I don't know what he's saying about the tax deal, which a lot of people believe is more egregious. But I mean, we've seen a million different times, Katie, Republicans find their way to supporting his nominations, whether it's Bill Cassidy and RFK at HHS, and Bill Cassidy eventually lost because Donald Trump campaigned and nominated again and went for somebody else. So I don't know for sure, but my gut is he still gets confirmed.
So I wonder what's the reasoning here, especially for folks like Cassidy or Cornyn or Tillis. They're all leaving, Scott. So is it just that they think maybe the next person that Donald Trump nominates might be worse? I mean, that's what Bill Barr is arguing. And you got to nominate him because he's the only reasonably competent person you could put at DOJ.
What Thom Tillis said over the weekend, Katie, seemed to soften the ground ahead of him becoming a yes. Totally agree with Jake. It seems like things are falling in line here. What Thom Tillis said is he is satisfied about Todd Blanche's answers on January 6th. Even though Todd Blanche has been an apologist for January 6th defendants and championed the pardons, he's satisfied Thom Tillis on that issue. The wedge issue does remain the slush fund. Thom Tillis says he still wants better answers on what's become of that $1.76 billion taxpayer-funded handout to convicted crooks. And if you look at that list of questions the Senate has for Todd Blanche, that's the one that jumps out. I mean, it's like a grocery list full of things they want to know about. But the slush fund still lands the wrong way. And Jake mentioned that overnight vote in the Senate a couple weeks back where they could have blocked the slush fund but didn't. I'm still struck by the contrarian votes on that. Republicans in Florida, Ohio, and Alaska came out against the slush fund. They're in tough re-elections. That slush fund is still an albatross. He's got to figure that out before he's confirmed.
So, Ken, how much worse could it get if it's not Todd Blanche? Could it get any worse than it already is? I mean, that list is very long.
It could get worse, Katie. And this is the thing. Todd Blanche is a unique figure in American life right now. He's an experienced former federal prosecutor. He was in the Southern District of New York, and he had a good reputation before he joined Trump world. And even on the eve of his ascension to Deputy Attorney General under Pam Bondi, a lot of people I talked to thought that he was going to be the reasonable voice in the room. And on some issues, he was. He did stop some bad things from happening. But he has shown, particularly since he became acting Attorney General, that he is willing to do almost whatever Donald Trump wants. He's willing to violate any DOJ norm. And he's willing to go out and justify it in interviews with reporters. He's good on television, so that's one thing that argues in his favor. And so a lot of people are looking at this and saying, yes, he is going to do these bad things that we don't like, but at least he's competent. At least he understands how the Justice Department works, and maybe he'll stop some things behind the scenes that could be even worse. And if it's not him, it's going to be somebody like an Ed Martin or some other figure who has no real experience running anything and who could be not only malevolent but incompetent and really put the country at risk. That's the thinking. It's amazing that this is where we are, but this is this is what it's come to, Katie.
It's hard to put the bar much lower than that.
It certainly is, and that shouldn't be the standard. Well, he's horrible, but someone else could be even more horrible. And I hope they ask him, they meaning the senators, if he agrees with former Attorney General Robert Jackson that the most dangerous prosecutor is a prosecutor who picks people he thinks he should get rather than cases should be prosecuted. I think he should, with a straight face, answer that question. And if he says, I agree with that, then start listing, James Comey, Letitia James, John Brennan, Cassidy Hutchinson. And then, that's how you get him to commit. You have him answer questions that requires him to say yes or no and admit what he can't deny. I know senators can't help themselves and they pontificate rather than ask questions. But I think it's important. This is one of the most important jobs in the federal government.
There's questions about what federal oversight or what congressional oversight will look like if Democrats retake the House or retake the Senate, Jake. I mean, I know that they're going to want to start investigating various things within this administration. They're going to probably want to subpoena Todd Blanche and get all sorts of records, the questions that they have not gotten answered from him. What happens with those? And what do they do if this Justice Department continues to refuse to comply?
They'll hold them in contempt, of course, which they've done before in when there's divided government. And I don't think, obviously, a Trump Justice Department would prosecute its own attorney general for being in contempt. But I think that's fair to say. But listen, congressional oversight, even when it's not complied with, could still be incredibly effective, right? You could get whistleblowers. We saw that a lot in the first Trump administration. You could get people inside government and outside government who have heard things that they don't think are right. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go, which is why it's so stunning to me, Katie, that the president does not appear, in my estimation, to be taking this election more seriously, because it will mean absolute hell for this administration. It will tie them up on Capitol Hill all the time. It will require them to have attorneys working all the time to comply with congressional requests and demands. So I think that's a real threat to this administration.
Yeah, and one of the questions I have is, and I know this is kind of a dirty question here, but Donald Trump used to his advantage, Scott, all of the investigations into him during his last term and in the intervening time where he wasn't president. He used it to paint himself as a victim, and he won on the back of it in 2024. There is a school of thought that believes that Donald Trump welcomes this because he knows or he believes it helps him. And there is an open question of whether it actually does help him and whether it is a good idea for Democrats to be uber aggressive on the investigations, or if they should, I don't know, pick one or two or three or four and then focus everything else on cost of living. Are those debates being had in Congress right now?
I think you're seeing it on the campaign trail, Katie. If you look at some of the most prominent Democratic challengers trying to swing these seats, they lead with an economic message. They start with groceries, then get to Trump. They start with fertilizer prices, then get to Trump and the vanity projects and the alleged fraud that's taking place. That's a good barometer, I think, of where they think the electorate is. You start with costs. The voters are unequivocal on this. This is the first, second, and third issue on the list. But yes, they're going to have to fight these fights, especially these transparency fights with these lists of things they think they need, from records on the killing of Renee Good to records on the slush fund to records on the pardons. They're going to get there. But I think they start with prices and move there second.